and Joseph's poetry reading. It's called A Short Program of Poems for Young People in 4 chapters. I realized when I read the material that what they've actually produced is more like a song cycle, and it's more like a musical performance than a reading. And there's a good reason for this. Both are musicians as well as poets and scholars. And they're also going to be doing things to poems you thought you knew. Now, Michael, this is the thing you're supposed to do at academic conferences. You have to give formal academic introductions. So Michael is a professor at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and among his recent music-related work is his children's poems, songs, and stories, which I left in my the other one. I'll get it. Shall I?
It doesn't matter.
I'll get it next time. Okay. All right. Sorry. He's also the head editor of one of the translators of the 10th Rasa, an anthology of Indian nonsense, and he's published This Book Makes No Sense, that's the one that's in my bag, and is working on a novel. He's also a judge and essayist for the Lion and the Unicorn Poetry Award. Now, on his website, he lists the things he does at the Berklee School of Music: baritone saxophone, flute, tabla, throat singing, and diddle-ma-fo. Now, the last one, because I was worried about this, is a joke, so don't worry. It's okay. Yes.
Or is it?
Or is it? Or it might be.
That's no joke.
Now, Joseph Thomas, besides his regular gig as a professor at San Diego State University, has been moonlighting occasionally with the opera company, mediating, if you like, their production of Cinderella for a popular audience. Joseph had an undergraduate minor in music before he too moved to a successful scholarly career. He was a founding judge and one of the inaugural editors of The Lion and the Unicorn, and holds, I think, the record for the most frequent contributor. Strong Measures is the title of his collection of poetry, and Poetry's Playground, the culture of contemporary American children's poetry, stands as an important contribution to the scholarly work on children's poetry. So both Michael and Joseph engage their scholarly expertise in the celebration and promotion of the joy of verse. So come in. Oh, that's enough for me. It's your turn. Okay.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So this is, as Lisa said, a short program of poems for young people in 4 chapters. And we're going to start with the first chapter and then move towards the 4th, and we'll end on the 4th chapter. That's conventional, right? So chapter 1.
All our base are belong to us.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 3.
Seasick love songs.
Chapter 4. Chapter 1.
All our base are belong to us.
Now this chapter begins with a dedication. My father died last winter, and so I wrote a poem for him, and that is our dedicatory poem for this piece. It's called My Father Died. My father died 8 months ago. All he left me was alone, a green beret, and a pile of bones. And this note for a past due loan. He left me not a word or poem or bottle of cologne. All I got were broken jeans and the bill for a cheap headstone.
The hat. There's something wrong with my new hat. It's long and felt and black and flat. There's nothing wrong with all of that. It's just that arms should seem to fit its seams to match my dreams of it. What? My hat needs arms, okay? Like any hat you see today, like any hat worth half its spit, but lacking arms. Return.
The cat. There's something wrong with my new cat. She's short and svelte and gray and fat. There's nothing wrong with all of that. It's just her arms and her legs are switched. Some god has stitched her hands to where her feet should be. So when her crown has an itch, it's with her feet. She scratches it. Felis catus. 4 lines on the subject of. Warm kitty, soft kitty, velvet paws with thorns. Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, maw full of horns.
Bisht, boshed mud pies. Part 1. Who Push-pash bished and pish-pash boshed, made mud pies that squished and squashed. Push-pash packed 'em, pish-pash stacked 'em, bish-boshed mud pies freshly squashed. Pish-pash boshed and push-pash bished, mighty mud pies bravely fished. Pish-pash hooked 'em, push-pash cooked 'em, bosh bish mud pies freshly snished. Part 2. Pish-pash washed and push-pash bished, packed more pies than could be wished. But more orders came from hoarders wanting more than could be dished. Pish-pash called out to his mother, "Send my muddy, brilliant brother. Send us pish-posh, hogwash, boshed, mud pie master like no other." Pish-posh-boshed had expertise commodifying pies with ease, so dredged them from the deepest seas and packed them with his knees. And then, ignoring all their pleas while speaking fluent mud piese, he wrapped them up in Mudster cheese and dressed them down in dungarees. When he could surely store no more, he bunged them in the bongus trees and squeezed them into parentheses. Push-pash, pish-pash, pish-posh, boshed, made enough mud pies that squashed. Push-pash fried 'em, pish-pash dyed 'em, pish-posh hogwash versified 'em. And though their mother can't abide 'em, buy them dressed and dished and washed. Bish-boshed mud pies freshly snoshed.
Nonsense rhyme for Michael Heyman. Oh, yes. And he's good. Don't encourage. Don't encourage. Nonsense rhyme for Michael Heyman. One way. Michael Heyman. Nonsense rhyme for Michael
Who?
Heyman.
No.
Nonsense rhyme for Michael Heyman. One way or two, this way or that, she'll turn like a sonnet and later come back. A handful of silver, a pot full of gold, a terrible secret that will never be told. So give her a go and off you'll be sent. Try her again, she'll leave you for Lent. Do it once more, but never a fourth. The heart's not a stone that points to the north. Your head on a pillow and hers on your chest. You bought her a bucket, a bed full of rest, a bindle of thorns, a ladle of broth, a trio of Norns, a mermaid who's wroth. You will never be told this terrible secret. A pot full of gold worth 10 silver beaches. One way or two, that way or this. There's only one road, only one way to kiss.
Sorry, I've been shaking my head over here because you have to understand that poem is actually a parody of another poem. So the poem by Joseph Thomas that you just heard is actually a parody of a poem by Joss Homefat. It's called A Ponsense Poem, or A Boater's Abyss. Unweigh her snood, dissuade her hat, will burn down his bonnet and light his headstaff. A vandalous pilferer taught all around this terrible secret, battle ever the crowned. Bequiver your ego and doff your intent, conspire to reign in their cranial vent. Dude, who wants morbid fedora remorse? Then parse not their dome, disanoint their hair horse. Their head in a milliner's hearse, honor dressed, brought in their brain bucket a dreadful request. The pilferer warns us, abate at all cost. All emo tricorns on a cockaded goth and twill beaver hat hold. His parable preaches. The pilferer bold with his tonsure beseeches. One toupee too few, one hat's length from bliss. That's only one road in a boater's abyss.
The cutest little polyphore. The cutest little polyphore I ever dear did see grew proudly from my balcony, a joy for you and me. This cutest little polyphore, she asked for nothing more than for the chance to reproduce alone, asexually. The unbidden churro. Violets are purple and corpals have teeth. Churros can't hurple because they're not beasts. A horse has two curples, its hooves are beneath, but it can't wear a girdle nor burble like Keith. A churro bequeaths as it hurples on curples and burbles a sheesh. And we close this chapter with a sonnet. This sonnet is called Pshaw, a sonnet. Pshaw, a sonnet. I got your sham right here, man. A shaman's chamois shamwow. And not a chamois or the shabby or chamois, shamon. We're talking a shaman's chamois shamwow, man. Dig? So don't pshaw me, Mr. Shaman Man. I see your chamois chamois and raise you a shawl right here, right now. It's all the same as the saying says, on a slump-backed sawhorse seesaw. One sawbuck shaw? I say it again, shaman. Pshaw, man. You ain't got the clams for sheer chamois shamwows. So sorry, the sham's a shame. Scram, and take your lorry of sorry shawls with you. What's the phrase? Ain't worth a shaman's show? Shazam! Scrawl that on your chamois and sell it for a song saw. That's all. Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
I'll be reading 8 lines from Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Charge of the Light Brigade for reasons that Michael Heyman will make clear in a moment. I hope. The Charge of the Light Brigade. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. All in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward, the Light Brigade. Charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600.
Or so you thought the original poem went. But I hate to disappoint you all. I'm here to rectify the error and that, in fact, the original poem, of which that was a parody, is, of course, not by Alfred Lord Tennyson, but by the slightly less famous Dr. Lenny Teal Dorfson. And it is called The Chard of the Blighted Souffle. Half a leek, half a Swede, half a fig onward, all in a bullion broth, rose the mix sundered. Forward the blighted souffle, charred on the run, he said. Into the valiant broth flowed the mix sundered. Forward the blighted souffle. Was there a ham display? Hot into the soul-charred stew, someone added mung curd. There's not to bake a pie. There's not to baste a seasoned thigh. There's a buttered roux to fry. Into the valiant broth flowed the mix sundered. Gammon to right of them, gammon to left of them, gammon confined them. All pink-dyed, replundered, stormed the hot pork rondelle. Coldly they strove to quell infusions of lawless broth, and spurning mounds of offal rose the mix sundered. Gammon to right of them, gammon to left of them, gammon confined them. All pink-dyed, replundered, stormed the hot pork rondelle.
Vile boar!
And here it fell! A souffle that had fought so well came through the jaws in breath, attacking the snout with a smell appalling that waft to them the waft from the mix sundered. When can their glory fade? Oh, the mild chard they made, all the world wondered. Honor the chard they made. Honor the blighted souffle, noble mix sundered. I know, once you hear the original, it's really quite moving.
It's hard to go back to the
It
Tennessee.
is. The Who? The next piece is an excerpt from a poem by Robert Graves. It is called Warning to Children. Children, leave the string alone, for who dares undo the parcel finds himself at once inside it, on the island, in the fruit, blocks of slate about his head, finds himself enclosed by dappled green and red, enclosed by yellow tawny nets, enclosed by black and white acres of dominoes, with the same brown paper parcel still untied upon his knee. And if he then should dare to think of the fewness, muchness, rareness, greatness of this endless, only precious world in which he says he lives, he then unties the string.
So you may know that poem. I've taken it upon myself to improve it. Advice for children. Children, if you dare to think of the rareness, muchness, fewness of this precious, only, endless world in which you say you live, you think of things like this. Gym showers full of boys and girls, snapping towels, red welts on rears, refracted sun and polished glass, and squirming ants consumed by flame. The roll of dice, we call it craps, and the give of cash held tight in hand, winning one through guile and cheat, and acrid smoke from stolen fags and gateway drugs, swinging wide straight on through to the other side. Such treasures wait in small zip-locked bags, plastic keys to worlds unspied. Take them, children, make them your own, for who dares undo the parcel finds themselves at once outside it, snapping towels and pinching rears, burning ants and smoking smokes, shooting craps and rolling joints and buying bags of skag from friends instead of sitting alone and grim with unwrapped parcels about your bed, wheezing your last on your dying day. And if only then you should dare to think of the fewness, muchness, rareness, greatness of this endless, only precious world in which you say you live, it will be too late. This next excerpt is by Theodore Redke, and it's called My Papa's Waltz. I'll read you 4 lines. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy.
Or so you thought the original poem went. So once again, I must disappoint you. The original poem is not by Theodore Redke, but by Derek Hot Hooter, so it turns out. It is called My Papa's Schmaltz. The brisket on your breath could make a small boy queasy, but while I hungered, you left. Such schmaltzing was not easy. Weird Aunt Grunty, ill with glands, bled by some twitching elf, mimed others' incontinence, could not ungown herself. Then Granddad's mild fist was buttered on one knuckle. He never stopped. He missed my slight fear of naked stucco. You see, I'm full of dread, withdrawn, cracked, hardly alert. Then you schmaltzed me off to bed, still singing for dessert. The next piece is also by Theodore Redke. This is the full poem. It is called The Chair. A funny thing about a chair, you hardly ever think it's there. To know a chair is really it. You sometimes have to go and sit.
And I will follow that poem with a slight improvement. It's called A Funny Thing, and it goes a little like this. A funny thing. What's very clear about a throne, be it ivory, porcelain, or bone, by the time you get to it, you find your need to take a sit has passed.
Now another a small piece of a poem you may be familiar with by William Blake called The Lamb. Just the first 2 lines. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee?
And I will follow that one up with a poem called On the Lamb. I think you'll find it a slight improvement on the original. On the Lamb. Little lamb on the lamb, dost thou know who made thee? Who dropped a dime, the dirty rat, and sold you down the river? Who set you up and made you flee and drown your fear in liquor? Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He's Nicky the Rat, a gutter punk. He wears a prison tat. He is meek, but he is not mild. Nicky'd finger his own damned child. He's Johnny Law's favorite son. He told the pigs where you stashed your gun. He called you out by name. Little lamb on the lamb, you won't for long be free, 'cause little lamb on the lamb, Nicky the Rat made thee.
Now an excerpt from a most delightful poem by Charles Kingsley called The Song of Madam Do As You Would Be Done By. I once had a sweet little doll, dears, the prettiest doll in the world. Her cheeks were so red and so white, dears, and her hair was so charmingly curled.
And I'll follow that with a poem of mine called The Doll. I think you'll agree it's a slight improvement on the original. The Doll. A sweet little doll, dears, unlike our world, so red and so white, dears, charmingly curled. Poor little doll, dears, in the street one day, for more than 10 years, dears, that's where she lay. Poor little doll, dears, in the street one day, terribly changed, dears, face burned away, sodden by rain, dears, not the least bit curled, yet she is alive, dears, unlike the world. And after that light little poem, a love poem. This poem is called Love Poem. Roses are rose, violets are violet, sugar is sweet, and violence is violent.
Gold.
And I will now read a little bit of Robert Burns' poem called A Red, Red Rose, for reasons Michael will make apparent in a moment. Oh, my Louvre is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my Louvre is like the melody that's sweetly played in June.
Robert Burns, unfortunately, a great pretender. The original poem, not by Robert Burns, but by Norbert Rubbs. I'm sure you've heard of him. It's called A Red, Red Nose. Oh, my Louvre's like a red, red nose that's lewdly thumbed in tune. Oh, my Louvre's like a smelody discreetly brayed at noon. Is there a cow or bonny ass so deep in Louvre as I? And I will Louvre bestill my leer till all the fleas can fly. Till all the geese bake pie, my dear, and the cock smelts with his son a wattle glove in steel, my dear, till a handsome wife succumb. A Ferris wheel with only a shove, and there will wheel a while and die. I'll welcome then, my Louvre, thy certain saddened smile.
And another love poem, this one called You Go to Hell, You. You Go to Hell, You. This is the title. Sugar is sweet, and violence is violet. Roses are rose, violets are violet. chapter 3. Oh, I was going to pass those out. What'd you have to?
Seasick love songs.
Chapter 3.
Seasick love songs. And so my assistant, Norbert, is delivering a handout for you all. Let me cue the band. So part of this comes from the Poetry International issue, as you know, and one of the pieces in Poetry International is called The Hammerhead Brill, which is actually a song. And we have a bootleg version. What was it? This was like Glastonbury 69?
69.
I think? Yeah. So this is the Hammerhead Brill, Glastonbury 69 bootleg. You can follow the lyrics on the back of your sheet there. Here we go.
I sing this song for my youth long gone, for the home that I left for the chill, on the wandering seas of our tall Argus seas, where we hunt at the Hammerhead Brill. We go heave and a ho, we don't know where to go. We go ho and the heat on the main. We were strapped to the mast to my rooms, double fast as we fought, double not for our pain. The brill was a lighter and tested fighter, clever on giblets and lung. Long ago he had fingers like rock and fingers, too long on the tip of my tongue. With a heave and a ho, we don't know where to go. With a ho and a heave we stay. From women too long and the living, the bridges that win our refrain. With buckets of lung, we shoved as we clung to our hopes and our hats and the sprays. But the brill flipped us off of our boats and we tossed on the toothsome and virulent waves. With a heave and a ho, we don't know where to go. With the ho and the heave in the main. We were cast from our mast to the fresh brill that passed as we swam double climbs for our pen. But there in the brine, the brill left behind a treasure afloat in a bucket, a lollipop note on which somebody wrote in a florid calligraphy socket. The heat and a ho, we don't know where to go. It's a ho and the heat we have gained. Our mystery sweeps as we sailed in our fleet from our world's galactic domain. From our head's watery domain.
There we are.
A love song. By the way, I diddly day,
A diddly day, a doe.
by the side we trade away,
A diddly day, a doe.
By the cray, a diddly day, a fiddly cray, cray so. We fish and trade, a piddly play, a fiddly fay, cray crow. By the day, the rhubarbs say, a diddly day, pay po. By the key, the crayfish tease, a riddle me ree ray row. We fish and sing, we hum and see, all through our own glass eyes. We take our fish in humble tunes, all kittle a KK coo. We find a girl with flaming eyes, a diddly day a doe. We sell our souls at noon, a middling maid fay foe. By the way, the mermaid shaves, all brittle in bray bray boo. By all the fishermen weighted in gray, she riddles in brays, ha-choo! We gave it away, all down by the bay, the princess of prey to do. We banked on the ray of the biddly bray, and prettily lay frou-frou. So down by the way, we weighed all our prey, and fiddled and frayed a poo, and riddled the bit, and tribbled the ship, as she piddled the cray cray loo.
And now another touching love poem. It is called, "O love, O sweet,
Oh love!
so that we'll never part, please tie this poem to your heart, and sink it with an amorous shove into the drunken deep.
Oh sweet!
To prove your love to me, your every follicle cast to sea, including your tender, tufted feet, my perforated sheet.
Amor!
To show your feelings true, your wheezes complicate with glue. Each snorkeled breath, each bated snore will lull us soundly to sleep.
My lamb!
If you my wishes grant, obey this damp romantic rant, I'll clasp you like a loving clam, with hair and heart, with snorkeled pant, a flaming, boneless, hirsute ham. Oh, grumble not, nor weep.
The fisherman. His life is strange, the fisherman. He draws our bread from sea. His life is strange, half on the shore and half upon the sea. He's not a fish, not quite a man, not quite like you and me. The foamy surf, it calls to him, the murmur of the sea. His life is strange, the fisherman. He works on choppy seas. Until tonight, he's only caught a glimpse of the mermaid queen. And so this eve, he caught her up within his net of silk. It cut into her ivory flesh. Her tears were salty milk. She wasn't hooked, but was enmeshed. The net was all she wore. Her hair as bright as her skin. Her flesh, his net, it tore. The fisherman has curious eyes. They make you feel so queer. He's seen and loved so many things and nearly knows no fear. But on the sea that foggy night, not gray, nor yet quite blue, he caught that girl with the sea green hair who broke his heart in two. He knows so much of boats and tides, of winds and clouds and sky, but staring at that lovely thing twisting on his deck, piercing him with angry cries, he knew only regret. And as he thought of golden rings, he cut her free inside and tossed her back into the sea without a word goodbye.
Now I'll tell you about a gentleman I knew who actually will be making an appearance very soon. His name is Captain Always. And we met, as burly sailors do, on the way to the shores of Kathmandu in tongueless apprehension. I saluted him with my excess skin, exactly I hear as would you, which naturally needed the tension. Myself decked out in coral pin, and he in floral brocade, my hand he shook in his delicate hook, and cleaving me with a mealy grin, he said,
"We must always,"
and made a bow to the balustrade. I thought that I his words mistook. "We always must?" I asked. He stood stock straight. Straighter. In an angry state, with wistful rage his whiskers shook.
You maim my words. You make them look like mincing Precambrian Basques.
One hand on heart, and one on his pate, he beckoned me to draw near. With doleful sighs and moans sanctified, his glances implied he tried to relate the meaning of his ways from the leaning of his leer and the tangle of his gestures unclear. Nah. He pointed out to the lavender sky, then over the ocean sprays, to lands unknown where his thoughts had flown from staring too long at a salmon's eye, where osseous otters swim slightly awry, and the angle of the waves makes the walruses cry. Then, on his knees, with a reverent gaze, he begged.
We must always.
It might have been his tumescent tone, or his riotous roundelay, but then I knew his meaning true, so I clasped his neck. Since we were alone, the cannibals and brahmables had never shown, and we sloped our separate ways. Since that day, I've serenely pursued his words through sea and slime. On tumbled August nights, I've become aware of the sins of admiring my gums while preaching daring do. I hear my friend spends all his time marauding the coast for innocent limes, repenting his most ineffectual crimes, on his way to Kathmandu sometimes, to the shores of Kathmandu.
Sugar shine glow. I know a boy with a sugar shine glow. He's got a heart that's black and a fire below. I held a boy without a quid pro quo. He's got scales on his thighs and fins for toes. Yeah, I love a lad and he smells like a rose. He's got blood red petals and them thorns of gold. So listen up, son. He's the merman's king, as hot as the sun, 3 times as mean. To know him is to love him, and to love him is to ignite. He'll turn you into ashes, leaving you saying, all right. Listen, I love a boy with a sugar shine glow. He's got crimson on his head, hellfire below, and there ain't nothing better than the touch of this guy. He's the white hot sun who burns clouds from the sky. And we'll end this chapter with a poem.
A poem, you said?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
Just one more.
All right.
Our favoritist mermaid. She danced in the surf as the tiger sharks swooned. Our favoritist mermaid, her heart unbequeathed. Her azure hair and viridescent tail made rainbows about her, a shimmering veil to dissuade those old sharks who would not submit. For the heart of this maid who loved like a gale was held by a man with skin for a shell. The sight of this pair it beggared belief, brown-skinned beauty curled next to base beast. Yet inside her heart she only had room for this kinky-haired poet with legs for a tail, who once nibbled her neck as they lay on their dune and rocked the poor beach like a summer's typhoon. But she lived in the sea, and he lived on land. And but one night a month could they walk hand in hand, for Poseidon was moved to grant them this boon, in permanent love by the light of full moon. So as the sharks circled and sharpened their teeth, our favoritist mermaid, her heart unbequeathed, danced in the surf between shore and the reef. Chapter 4.
First poem in the new chapter is by A.A. Milne. It is called Now We Are 6. When I was 1, I had just begun. When I was 2, I was nearly new. When I was 3, I was hardly me. When I was 4, I was not much more. When I was 5, I was just alive. But now I am 6. I'm as clever, so I think I'll be 6 now, forever and ever. What they said.
So, I thought that poem was a little short. So I improved it by extending it into 6 parts, which I will read to you one after another. 6 are we now.
1.
When was 1 had just begun, when was 2 was nearly new, when was 3 was hardly, when was 4 was not much more, when was 5 was just alive, but now am 6, am as clever, so think will be 6, now and forever.
2.
When 1 just begun, when 2 nearly new, when 3 hardly, when 4 not much more, when 5 just alive, but now 6, as clever, so 6, now and forever.
3.
1 begun, 2 new, 3, 4 more, 5 alive, but 6, as clever, so 6, now and forever.
4.
Begun, new, alive, but as clever, so, and.
5.
And so clever as, but alive, new begun, forever and now 6. So clever as 6, but alive, 5 more, 4, 3, new 2, begun 1, forever and now. 6, so clever as 6, now but alive, just 5 when more, much not 4, when hardly 3, when new, nearly.
6.
2, when begun just 1, when forever and now 6 will be think. So clever as am, 6 am now, but alive just was 5. Was when more, much not was, 4 was when, hardly was 3, was when new nearly, was 2, was when begun, just had 1, was when now, we are 6.
The next piece is the first part of a piece by Dodie Smith. It's called I Capture the Castle. I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. That is, my feet are in it. The rest of me is on the draining board, which I have padded with our dog's blanket and the tea cozy.
From that poem, I extrapolated the following, which I call first lines after I capture the castle. First lines after I capture the castle. I write this sitting in the kitchen sink.
I write this sink on the kitchen set.
I write this sitting on the kitchen sink.
I write this kitchen in the sitting sink.
I write this kitchen on the set sink.
I write this kitchen on the setting sink.
I write this sinking in the set kitchen.
I set this writing on the kitchen sink.
I set this sink on the kitchen, right?
I set this writing in the kitchen sink.
I set this kitchen on the right sink.
I sink this writing in the kitchen set.
I sink this right in the sitting kitchen.
I sink this kitchen in the right set.
I write this sinking kitchen set.
I write this kitchen sink set.
I write this stinking kitchen set.
I cite this ranking kitchen set.
I sigh this kitchen set rank.
I buy this kinky rank site.
I try this kitsch stitching and like this kvetching rich set while I sink this retching kitchen site down the written sink.
I think he won. To month. Humph and a humph under gloom, under glump, at a desk in a room with a flume and a flump. Scritch and a flitch and a flask on a niche, at a chair in a nest with a blesk and a blitch. Grudge and a smudge on a smare and a trudge with a pen and a spare and a glare on a grudge. Humph and a humph under glen, under glump, at a desk in a den with a blen and a plump. Humph and a humph, humph and a humph, 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 humph.
Hitch, scritch, the old scratch, scrap.
Hinch,
Scritch,
minks, the
scribble,
old witch winks, the
scribble,
fat begins to fry.
Scratch.
There's
Scritch,
nobody at
scritch,
home but
scrabble,
little jumping
snatch,
Joan,
scribble,
father,
scratch.
mother, and I. And now the last piece of the 4th chapter is part of it is on your handout there on the other side from the Hammerhead Grill. This is a piece, some of you may know this, by Kurt Schwitters from the early part of the 20th century. He was inspired by the Raoul Hausmann visual poem that you see there. And he took the letters and sounds as he saw them from that and created a theme of sorts. And so you see the theme there below. That theme is used as a musical theme for a sonata. And so he is using words here instead of music to create a sonata. Schwitters was German, but I can guarantee you that all the words that you hear in this following piece are not German. They are not English. They are not. Thumps babatetse u pagif kwie om tilrirbeba thumps ba rirbeba thumps baba baba thumps babate ba thumps babatetse thumps babatetse u pagif kwie. Dat is een ie een biptuf to til. Juka. Rinsekate bebe in skermu. Tsiuense tsiu rinskermu. Rakete bebe. Rumftilf to. Tsiuense tsiu inskermu. Tsiuense tsiu rinskermu. Rakete bebe. Rakete bebe. Thumps babatetse u. U te te bebe thumps. Beba. Fa. Bava. Fumspa. Bavara. Fumspava. Bavarate. Fuspavate. Bavarate. Fuspavate. Bavarate. Fuspavate. Bavarate. Upa. Fuspavate. Upa. Bavarate. Upaga. Fuspavate. Upaga. Bavarate. Upagi. Fuspavate. Upagi. Bavarate. Upagi. Fuspavate. Upagi. Krie. Rinskata beba. Ba. Bava. Fumspa. Bavara. Fumspava. Bava. Baba. Fumspava. Bavara. Baba. Fumspava. Bavarate. Baba. Fuspavate. Baba. Bavarate. Baba. Fuspavate. Baba. Bavarate. Upa. Fuspavate. Upa. Bavarate. Upaga. Fuspavate. Upaga. Bavarate. Upagi. Fuspavate. Upagi. Krie. Rinskata beba. Ba. 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 Baba. 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 Bavara. 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 Dat is een ie een biptilto. Dat is een Dat is een Pagif. Dat is een ie een biptuf to til. Juka. Rensekate bebe in skermu. Siuense siu renskermu. Rakete bebe. Sikete bebe. Rensekate bebe. Rakete bebe. Sicket baby answer, rensicket baby answer, rocket baby answer. Sicket baby insker, rensicket baby insker, rocket baby insker, sicket baby insker moo, rensicket baby insker moo, rocket baby insker moo, sicket baby insker moo, seal, rensicket baby insker moo, seal, rocket baby insker moo, seal, sicket baby insker moo, seal, answer, rensicket baby insker moo, seal, answer, rocket baby insker moo, seal, answer, sicket baby insker moo, seal, seal, rensker moo, rensicket baby insker moo, seal, seal, rensker moo, rocket baby insker moo, seal, seal, rensker moo, rocket baby. Dilf to Vims Bavatetse Pagif Kvie Dat is een r-i-e om dit tilf to til Juha Rensiket baby inskermu Tsiwense tsiu renskermu Racket baby Rumf tilf to Tsiwense tsiu inskermu Tsiwense tsiu renskermu Racket baby Racket baby Fünf Bavatetse U Z T V B Z T V B Z T V B Z T V B Z T V B Z T V B Fums Fünf Bavatetse Fünf Bavatetse U Ratatatatatatatatatatata Rinskatte Baby Inskermu Fünf Bavatetse